Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for authors, entrepreneurs, and career professionals who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
You got me here on another Thursday.
So Ted, come on, man. Now, have I ever let you down on a Thursday?
No.
No, I haven't.
But you got me here on another Thursday. I mean, it's Monday. We have this show on Mondays, and then I'm like, okay, Thursday, Eric, is the time if we just have to squeeze someone in, and it's like every week it seems like we're squeezing someone in every week. Can't hear you, Eric. He muted himself, Heather. Can't hear him.
I can't hear him either. So he switched audio.
Yeah, I'm sure. You're still muted, Eric. Heather, can you sing? We might need you to sing while
you do not want.
All right. I think we fixed the audio issue. Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Fantastic. What I was saying was that when we do these Thursday episodes, it's a big deal. And it's somebody that's got a message that we would just want to bring forward right away. So we break from our typical Monday schedule. So definitely this is one of those shows you just want to fasten your seatbelt because she's got a lot of good information to share. So before we go there, we just need everybody to know, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show.
That's right.
Share the show.
That's right. Because our goal for these episodes is to help you to laugh, to learn, and to ultimately level up. So hopefully you'll feel like by the end of this episode, we've accomplished that for you. So just share the show. Don't keep us a secret because truly, this is not your everyday podcast.
No, it's not your everyday podcast.
That's right. We do things a little different.
Even though we're doing them every day. It's not your everyday podcast.
Oh, man. And don't forget to check out the What Now movement, the Facebook group, over 1,650 plus career professionals and entrepreneurs. Today's Thursday, so it's Thankful Thursday. You want to go in there and reflect on all the things you have to be thankful for. Ted?
Yes, Eric. He's saying that I have something on my mind. And then usually after that, I say,
what is that?
What do I normally say, Eric?
Please share.
Please share.
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, Eric, now whatever you want to say.
All right. So today, I want to pose a question. Do you have enough credibility to seize the opportunity? That's the question. Do you have enough credibility to seize the opportunity? And so there's a famous story of these two young fish, and they're swimming along, and they happen to meet this older fish that's swimming the opposite way, and he nods at them and says, "Hey, morning, boys. How's the water?" Two young fish just keep swimming on for a bit. They don't respond till one looks over at the other and asks, "What in the heck is water?" Here's the big takeaway. This is where we need your undivided attention. This is where I know you may be driving and you listen to us. We need you to pull over to the side of the road. You may be in the gym on the elliptical. We need you to press pause on the elliptical.
Somewhere.
Ted, anything else the people need to do?
Heather, put the ham sandwich down. If you got a ham sandwich, this is the time to put that. No matter how good that sandwich is, it's about to get good here.
I'm waiting. Right. I'm waiting. I'm like pins and needles. What's happening? What's the
put the ham sandwich down? So here's the big takeaway. Here's the reason why I told you that story. Really need to lean in because most people are swimming in opportunities that they've been overlooking.
That's true.
That's right. Most people, they've been swimming. They're swimming in all these opportunities. They're so close to them that they've been overlooking. And diversity certification is one of the most overlooked opportunities. And it prevents businesses from not having it prevents you from gaining the necessary credibility to boost your revenue. That's why we want to talk about this today. So our guest today, she just so happens to help businesses establish that higher level of credibility so they can seize the opportunity. That's right. Now's the ideal time for us to bring her on, Ted.
That's right.
Before my audio goes out again, I need to talk fast. All right. I have a limited number of words. I got to get to it. All right. She is the world's foremost authority on diversity certification, an area many businesses overlook. And as a result, it costs them thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential revenues every year. She's a business executive, a seminar director, renowned public speaker, marketing professional whose tireless advocacy for diversity helps make the business world more closely resemble the real world. In other words, she is somebody.
Well, she is somebody. Wow.
Absolutely. She co-founded Certify My Company based on her own frustrating experience completing the women's business enterprise certification process, something that opened her eyes to the challenges facing small, diverse businesses. Please join me in welcoming to the 30-Minute Hour podcast, Heather Cox.
Woo!
Welcome.
Thank you. That was quite an intro. The world-renowned expert.
That's
like,
right.
Woo!
That's right.
That was a
That's
level.
right.
I love it. I love
That's
it.
right.
That's right.
That's
World
right.
renowned.
Love
That's
it.
how we do on the 30-Minute Hour podcast.
Oh, you're going to get a good introduction here.
And I read this article one
one
time, and this guy said, "So, how did you become an expert?" He said, "I started calling myself an expert." I was like, "Well, there's one way to do it."
That's certainly a way to get it done. All right. Well, welcome to the show, Heather. It's truly an honor to have you. Let's go ahead and start by rolling the clock back. So you graduated from the University of Texas with a major in Spanish language. So what were your plans coming out of college? Like, what did you see for your career?
So I had always dreamed. My mom is a big traveler. She, right when I graduated high school, she said, both of them said, you're not ready for college. We don't think you're going to do well. We're going to send you to Europe instead for a year by yourself at 18. Okay, now as a parent, I'm kind of like, what were they thinking? But at the time, it seemed super awesome, right? So I go to Spain. So I learned Spanish in Spain, and it was amazing. I learned I probably learned more in those 8 months I was living there than in 4 years in college, right? Like I really did learn a lot. And so I wanted to do international hospitality. My plan was to go to school and then go on to hospitality school and work all over the world in hotels and businesses. And because I loved the hotel industry, I worked all through college in the hotels. So that was my plan, was to do international hospitality. But 9/11 got in the way of that.
Interesting.
Well, it got in the way, but also that's kind of how we ended up here, right? Because that plan didn't work out, right? So what's the story? Man plans, God laughs. So I ended up at a totally different trajectory, a totally different path, but it's still pretty awesome.
Right.
That's interesting. I mean, that changed the trajectory of your career, basically, the whole 9/11.
Yeah, totally did.
Awesome. So I think we need to go back a little even further than that, because you were at one point, you're a gymnast, you're a tightrope walker, you're a juggler. Talk to us about that. Like, how did you get into this whole thing with the circus?
So what's so funny is I always put that on my bio because it's like a conversation piece more than anything else. And so many people don't ask about it. So I'm like, you did not read. Because there is no way you're reading somebody was a tightrope walker and not asking about it.
You can't go past that. You can't go past the tightrope thing.
So when I was 4, my parents moved from the DC area to Redlands, California, which is in Southern California. And so we lived there for a few years. And when I was 6, there was, before we even knew about it, but for years, there was a great All-American Youth Circus, which was started by a man named Roy Coble to really help wayward boys off the street and give them something to do with like stunts and ropes and kind of basic circus skills. So when I was 6, my parents took us to see this circus, and I was, there was like sequins and there was makeup and there was like everything that was like important to me as a 6-year-old girl. I was so excited. And so I was like, Dad, I'm going to do the circus. He was like, what? You're not going to do the circus. I'm like, oh, I'm doing the circus. So we signed up. Yeah, we signed up. He signed me up, of course, right? So we did it. And so until I was 18 years old, I performed in a circus. Now, this was like, some people do soccer after school. So we did circus. We went to the Y. We did acro gymnastics, which is kind of like, think about how in cheerleading they do pyramids and tumble. That's kind of what it's like, right? So it's acro gymnastics. It's actually in the Olympics, I believe. Or they did it a couple of years ago as a trial one, whatever one of those are called. And then I did Spanish webs, which is where you climb a rope and they spin you around in circles. And I did juggling and I did unicycle and I did all these basic circus acts. And it was huge. I mean, it was amazing. And I think it's really one of the reasons that I'm never afraid to get on stage because I was always on stage. Right. Wow. And if you mess up, you mess up. All right. Most people don't know it except for you. Right. That's, I think, one of the biggest things is people assume people know when they mess up or they do something wrong. But if know what you're doing, you can cover it up usually pretty easily if you do a trick wrong, whatever. And so I think that, yes, I did it all through growing up. Even one summer we traveled around New England in a circus called Circus Smirkus. And we went for the whole summer, just touring around, meeting different people, performing. It's basic, when you have circus in common with somebody, you're like best friends instantly.
Wow. So you would I'd invite you to any party. Oh no, Heather! I know you're not going to just sit down over there. You need to do something.
I know.
You need to do some tricks, do some stunts, something.
He's got to catch me early on in the party. Right? It's a little dangerous, right?
There you go. There you go. That's cool.
Yes, definitely juggle occasionally if there's enough oranges around or something. Yeah, we make it fun.
Cool.
I think you kind of touched on this, but what were some of the lessons you learned from your time at the circus that you feel like really translate into the business world and what you're doing now?
Well, I think so. Other than just the stage presence, being on stage, I think it's also understanding how every component is important, right? So often people assume like, oh, just the CEO is important or just that this person's important. Where in reality, when you're doing a pyramid, every single component within acro gymnastics is vitally important. Like there was never a time when I was like, yeah, Mom, I'm not going to practice today because I don't want to. She's like, oh, yes, you are. You are the bottom of the pyramid. Like if you don't show up, they can't even practice. And my sister was always the top of the pyramid. So if she didn't show up, we couldn't finish. So it was really kind of learning that every part of an institution is super invaluable to completing the task, which is why I think like when I look at my team holistically, when I hire them, I always say every person on this team is important. Every single one. Like there's nobody who's more important because if I don't sell, you have no work to do. If you don't do the work, then no one's gonna believe in my selling. Because we are all super important to making this a whole process.
No, that's good. That's good. And then so you go on to co-found this company, Certify My Company. So I know there's some frustrations you experienced that may have inspired. Talk about the experiences that led up to you deciding to start this company.
Well, so first it starts so after I graduated from college, right, I came home after 9/11 and I was just working in operations and sales and just, whatever jobs I could get. Right. And then I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Man, I need to find myself. So I decided to go to Israel to just like find myself again. Right. So I got the scholarship to go to this school. So I went, and if I found myself, I don't know, that's kind of up in the air, but I did find a husband. So when we dated for a very short period of time, we got married, and then we came back, and I was pregnant when we came back from Israel. And shocker, people don't like to hire pregnant people. So I was like kind of looking for a job that I wanted to do. But I also knew that corporate America wasn't always so mommy friendly. So I worked for this nonprofit and I was doing some work. But at the same time, I was really still kind of figuring out what my career was going to look like because I knew I had to work. I didn't understand what that would look like. And I didn't know what I wanted to do necessarily because like companies don't always love accommodating mothers, especially, right? And so it's not always so easy to do that. So I was just asking executives and working moms and part-time moms, like everyone I could think of, I was asking. And so these entrepreneurs, though, I would meet the female entrepreneurs and I was like, you guys are amazing. your passion, your drive, like everything about you. I just was like, they were the sequins and the makeup of when I was 6 years old, right? I was like, you guys are amazing. I love everything about you. And then somewhere in our conversations, you can see I'm very shy. So it was very hard for me to keep asking questions. So eventually, though, I would just keep asking questions. They're like, oh, and my client wants me to do this certification and I can't get it done. And I couldn't understand how somebody who's an entrepreneur couldn't accomplish an application. Like it didn't resonate with me, but I didn't know what I was looking at. So I went and did a little research and I was like, oh, I can do that for you. And then I saw how frustrating it was for them, right? And for me and for them as we're working through the process. I'm like, there are so many people who are not going to take advantage of this if they don't have somebody to do it for them. So I was like, oh, I'll just do it for you. And that's kind of how the company started. But to this day, only less than 1% of all minority women-owned businesses are certified in the US. It's not a big number. And if they would just call us, it would get done, right? So it's a matter of like saying like, I see this as a barrier to getting to where you want to be, other entrepreneurs. And so that's kind of what set me up for being an entrepreneur. I wasn't someone who dreamed of entrepreneurship. I wasn't someone who was like, oh, I don't want to work on someone else's schedule. I was just like, oh, this needs to be done. I'm a very much like a get it done person. And so I was like, I'll do it for you. And then that was really just the women-owned businesses. And then someone said, oh, can you do the minority? Can you do the LGBT? And it organically unfolded like that.
It up. Look at you now.
Yeah.
World renowned.
Right?
Wow. Won't he do
it? Absolutely. So talk about how becoming diversity certified can give a company an edge.
Ooh, it's my favorite topic. Okay. Are y'all ready? Because now we're getting ready for the good stuff. Okay. So there's a few things. So first of all, everybody loves talking about the business development, how they got these new contracts and this contract. So first of all, business development is a huge part of it. Yes. However, it's not always for new business. You can also use it to on your current clients, right? If you're already doing business with them and they love you, and they appreciate supplier diversity, what other business internally can you get with them? You already have internal advocates. So start asking them to advocate for you. You've already done a good job for them. Now, if you haven't done a good job, don't ask. You got to do a good job first.
Right.
But if you do a good job, right, then you can ask them. Then there is the new business. So that means that, and here's my best analogy for it. And this is kind of a funny one because not everybody knows it, but there's a mansion in Northern California called the Winchester Mansion. Are the two of you familiar with this place?
No.
Okay. Next time you're in Northern California, take a little visit. But the widow is the Winchester rifles. So his widow went a little nuts when she got older, and she was hearing voices of every single person who ever was killed by a Winchester rifle. And so the voices would say to her, if you keep building onto your house, you will never die. So she just kept building, but without any like strategy behind it. So you'll open a door and it's like a 4-foot drop, or you'll open like a pantry and it's a brick wall behind it. And it's like, it's this crazy, amazing house that's now like, a national treasure or whatever, world renowned treasure. I don't know, but it's, it's really cool. Everyone goes there on Halloween because it's kind of got this like ghostly feeling to it. But that being said, I always say that supplier diversity certification is like you're knocking on the door to get business. Everyone does this, right? We're entrepreneurs. Like, hey, want to work with me? Want to work with me? Want to work with me? And either they don't answer or they're like, we don't want any, and they make you go away. But you're like, if they would just give me 5 minutes, they would see that I'm amazing and they would totally want to work with me. But they won't give you the 5 minutes for whatever reason it is, right? So supplier diversity is that side door. Okay, that's the side door that you go around and someone's like, hey, come here. Now, the reason I was talking about the Winchester Mansion is because not all supplier diversity doors are created equal. Some are Winchester Mansion doors, and you will walk through to a 4-story drop, or you will walk through to a brick wall. But the ones who have real supplier diversity programs, they're going to bring you into like the green room, and they're going to be like, all right, tell me why you're so good at what you can do. And then once that person, known as the supplier diversity manager, likes you, knows you, and trusts you, they will introduce you internally to the person you need to talk to. Those internal introductions are beyond invaluable, right? Because someone inside is saying, hey, talk to this person. They're really good at what they do. We really like them. They're competitively priced. Oh, and by the way, they're diversity certified. Okay, now you have that person's attention. You better sell like any other sale you've ever done in your life, okay? It's not a magic wand. Now you're through the sales cycle. It's you and one other company. And they're like, oh my goodness, these companies are both so good. How are we ever going to choose between these two? Oh, they're certified too? Now it just tipped the scale in your favors. Okay, so that's part one of how amazing certification can be. Part 2 is the company development. Okay. What do I mean by that? Well, we all want to be better business owners, better business leaders, better just business people who run our business better. So, like, for example, you can get scholarships to do executive education like Tuck or Kellogg School. And you have these people who are professionals teaching you how to run your business more effectively, more efficiently. You can do pitch competitions, which is just getting your name out there, practicing what it's like to talk about yourself and your business, which not all entrepreneurs are great at. Then there's things like mentorship programs. I just got done with my mentorship program with Toyota. So Toyota has a mentorship program. They partner you up with executive levels. My mentor was the CIO of Toyota North America. Her perspective from the C-suite of a Fortune 100 company is so invaluable to someone like me who sells to the Fortune 1000. So I would say to her, I'm like, hey, Holly, they're like, all these companies are like, Heather, you're amazing. You're so smart. Oh my goodness. I mean, we're not going to hire you, but you're awesome. So I'm like, Holly, what is the problem? Like, what is the difference between what I'm saying and what they need to hear to understand that I really could, really help their program? She worked with me on that. And I would say to her, like, they don't know that? She's like, no, they don't know it. You just think they know it because you're so engulfed and you've drank the Kool-Aid to the extent that you don't even realize what other people don't know. And so we went through all these different marketing pieces. We went through profitability. We went through how to make sure I'm tracking the hours of my employees to make sure we're charging the right amount to our customers, right? So we went through these very specific components because she's very operations and process focused. I am great at the sales and the talking about it, and I love what I do. But the process part is not my forte. So, but if I can have somebody's perspective like hers for free, by the way, like, it's unbelievable to do that. And so those are the kind of company development components people overlook, but they're so crucial to your certification and to benefiting from your certification.
See, Ted, I told you, when we do these Thursday shows, I mean, there's a reason.
Let me tell you, I'm excited.
Man. I mean, she dropped some serious nuggets here.
Man, just dropped it.
Yeah. So
just getting started, boys. Let's go.
Right, let's do
it. So talk about your ideal client that you service, and then kind of talk more about like specifically how you help them.
Okay, so we have two clients. We have two sides of the company. So one's the entrepreneurs themselves. It's really anybody who wants to leverage their business, who wants to grow their business. Okay. And we will work with them to facilitate the best diversity certifications for them. The reason I say it that way is because there are a plethora of certification options out there. However, they are not all created equal, nor do they deliver the same results. So you need to know who you are currently working with, who you want to work with, and then we can help you decide which is the best certification for you and your business. Okay, that's the first side. The other side, and probably the bigger side of our company now, is the corporations. So the corporations themselves hire us directly because they might have state requirements or they really want to support the diverse businesses, right? So like think about all these companies who made these very public proclamations in the last 18 months about how they're going to support diversity. You have to prove when you make a proclamation like that. You can't just say like, we're going to do $1 million to Black-owned businesses. Hope you believe me, right? You have to show them that you've done it. So that's why the certification is so important. People are always like, why do I have to be certified? Because you can't measure what you can't count. We need to know who you are, or it's just your word against mine. And we all, I mean, like, what was that woman's name? Rachel Doling, whatever her name was. It was like, yeah, I'm Black. And we're like, no, they're like, you're not actually. And she's like, no, but I am. So like, we, unfortunately in business, we need proof that you are who you say you are. And that is the benefit of the certification. So we can actually measure the metrics and see, are we really making more money? Is it really good for the economy? Without knowing who you're working with, you can't make those arguments. You can't make those statements.
Wow. So I'm a business owner, right? How do I know that those corporations that require these certifications are buying what I'm selling?
You cannot. But here's the best way to go about doing it. So first of all, once you're certified, you have access to the names of the corporations across the country who support the diversity, at least through these organizations. Most private companies, meaning the Fortune 1000, whatever, do not publicize their RFPs or upcoming contracts. But this is where the relationship comes in. And this is the benefit of the private sector certifications over the public sector. Because yes, the public sector shows you everything for the RFPs that are out there, right? But it's usually kind of just like you put it in there, who's the lowest price, and then moves from there, right? Whereas in the private sector, they want the most value. So it happens a lot of times. So when you meet these supplier diversity managers at the conferences and you build a relationship with them, then you can say to them, like, do you think you're going to be buying my product in the next 6, 8, 18 months? And they might say, no, we're in a 3-year contract. But now you know. Now you can say, okay, I'm putting it on my calendar. In 18 months, I'm going to start reaching out to them again to find out when they're going to put this RFP out. They might say, actually, yeah, it's opening up next week. Right. But that's where the relationship is so important with these supplier diversity managers, because they know, and the good ones actually go around and they say, what do you buy in the next 6 months? What do you buy in the next 6 months internally in their company? So they can bring it to the conferences. They can bring it to the suppliers.
So does the suppliers have the supplier diversity managers, do they have the requirements and the money, or if you can share what exactly their role is?
Their role is to find qualified, capable, certified diverse suppliers to bring back to their procurement team. Okay, that is their role, to find, to vet and to weed out the people who can't do the job, right? Because they don't want to just bring anybody to the table. Like, they still have to have their business, their company's best interest. So they want to bring back the most qualified, capable, certified suppliers, and that is their role. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you are already doing business with a company and then you get certified, you should reach out to that supplier diversity manager and say, hey, we've been working with you guys for 5 years. Just want to let you know, I just got certified. Here's what we have done for you. Here's what we can do for you moving forward, right? And then they can work internally to advocate for you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We're here talking to Heather Cox on the special Thursday edition.
World renowned.
Right, world renowned.
I need a shirt that says that.
Diversity certification expert, Heather Cox. So tell us about some of the certifications that you have and how it has helped you over time.
So we have a few certifications. So the first was WBENC, Women's Business Enterprise National Council. That is the gold standard of women's certification across the country. And all the certification eligibility is roughly the same. Just to back up a second, it has to be 51% owned, operated, and controlled, okay, by the demographic that you're certifying. So since we are certified as a women-owned business, we are 51% owned, operated, and controlled by a woman or women. We are also disability in certified. Disability in certifies that a company is owned by somebody or people or persons with a disability as defined by the ADA. So what happens is that's probably the most underknown certification and one of the most powerful out there, because there's a lot of people who don't realize that they qualify because of the taboo involved in saying you have a disability, whether it be an invisible or not invisible disability. So the ADA, they have a whole list of what qualifies as a disability, but what it comes down to is if you are not managing something, whether it be Crohn's disease or ADHD or HIV, whatever the issue is, if you're not managing it with medication, how does it affect your day-to-day ability to run your business? If it doesn't, then you don't qualify. But if you're like, if I don't take my medication, I will not be functioning, then that makes it a disability. And it is an unbelievably powerful certification. We also have the California Public Utilities Clearinghouse certification because we have a few utilities as clients. And so that certification, it's also a woman business enterprise certification through the California Utilities Clearinghouse. It's not a state, it's kind of like a pseudo government certification because it's not through the state of California, but it's through the state clearinghouse for the utilities. And we are in the middle of, we also have some like state of Nevada local emerging business. It's not really a diversity certification. And then the other one which we're applying for right now is the state of Illinois. Why do we go ahead and get the state of Illinois certification? Because certifications, the general rule is he or she who holds the purse strings determines which certifications will be recognized. So we have a potential new client who needs us to be state of Illinois certified. So I said, all right, if I'm eligible, I'll get it. And we happen to be eligible for the state of Illinois. You don't have to have a presence there or anything like that. And so we're getting that certification for this potential client.
So it sounds like there has to be a strategy around that, because you can't just go out and get every certification. You have to get certifications that tie with, where you want to do business or where you have relationships.
Exactly. Which is why that's the first thing we do with almost any of our clients. Who are you doing business with? who do you want to do business with? Now that could change, right? Like I wouldn't have thought I would have to get the state of Illinois certification, but it just happened. It came up. So we were able to use it. We're able to do it. So we have a couple clients who have the same situation. We've gotten them like a couple of the private sector certifications. And now they're like, oh, this corporate client wants us to get certified in these 5 states. So we'll go do that for them.
And I know you have quite a few success stories from people that you've helped to get certified that have gone on to do big things. But what's one success story that really stands out to you the most?
Well, this is probably my favorite one. And the reason it's one of my favorites is A, she's a super nice lady. So I love when nice people see success, right? But also she was in business for like 15 years and was like, I'm not getting certified. It's not going to do me any good. Like no one ever asks me for it, which is like a whole separate conversation. She's like, I'm not going to do it. This is not relevant to me. And then the pandemic hit and she had to pivot a little bit. And so she has a fashion company. They make clothing and that gets resold. So when the pandemic hit, the retail market took a hit, but she had all these factories and material. So she started making masks, right? Started making these masks for the pandemic. So then she got a contract with a big utility and it was almost $1 million contract. And she said, and they said to her, oh, aren't you women owned? And she said, we are. And they said, so why aren't you certified? And she's like, it's not relevant to me. It doesn't matter. And they said, well, we have a resource for you. We're going to introduce you to the world-renowned Heather Cox. And then we will. And she's like, if we get her to help you, will you get certified? She's like, I guess I'll do it. Like she understands the value of a client request, right? So she's like, yeah, I'll go ahead and do it. So we started the certification process for her. We got her WBENC, which is the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, and WOSB, which is the Women-Owned Small Business, which is the federal small business women-owned certification. And we started through the process. So fast forward a couple months, and she's watching, it's during the pandemic, and her husband are watching War Dogs. And this is only relevant to the story because it's entertaining. So they're watching War Dogs, they're laughing, and she's like, I'm going to start selling arms to the government too, now that I have this WOSB certification. And they're laughing. She goes into the office the next day and she tells her team, we're going to start selling arms to the government with our WOSB certification. And her CFO says, actually, I just I'm reading this book called Federal Contracts Made Easier by a colleague of mine named Judy Bratt. It just happened that he had this book. And he says, I think that we should reach out to her because maybe we can sell to the government, right? Not arms, but things that we can actually make. So they called Judy. They did this 8-week intensive program with her because she is the government guru out. Like there's nobody better than her at government contracts. And then they, started looking through the SAM.gov, which is where you register as a small business for the federal government. And she saw that the Marine Corps was looking for training uniforms. So they bid on it. And they got a massive multi-million-dollar contract, which she would never be able to apply for if she hasn't been certified. So she, within 1 year, and I the only reason I don't love this story is because I usually tell people it takes about 2 years to see a good return on your investment. And this happened in like 6 months. I'm like, you kind of ruined my statistics. But like she really did. From 1 year, went from I don't ever want to do this certification to having a multi-million-dollar contract because she was certified, right? She's good at what she does, but she couldn't have even applied for it without the certification.
That's a great story. So I know you were like, Well,
she came to Vegas, and I'm like, drinks are on you.
That's right. That's cool.
But I mean, what a classic example of the opportunity that you're overlooking, right?
Oh yeah.
It led to millions of dollars in contract money.
Oh yeah, people tell me all the time. They're like, I know we should finally do it because one guy called me a few months ago. He's like, I think I've estimated we've lost about $750,000 because we weren't certified just this year. I'm like, well, I don't understand. Like, just do it. I don't understand why you haven't done it yet. That's a big number.
For sure. So shifting gears a little bit, as we talk about diversity, if I have a company and I really want to put this culture of diversity in place, well, based on your experience and seeing this, I mean, what advice do you have for that CEO that needs to have that culture of diversity in place in his company?
That's a great question because there's actually 2 parts of diversity, right? So there's the DEI, which has a bunch of attention right now, the equality and inclusion, which is your internal, your employees. But then there's the external, which is supplier diversity, which is what we do. So, but yes, to your point, it has to be a CEO down I don't even want to say initiative. It has to be a CEO down, bred into the DNA of the company. And probably the person that embodied this the best, who we lost not too long ago, is Bernard Tyson, who was the CEO of Kaiser Permanente. There was literally nobody who embodied that, having the diversity as part of your DNA, better than he did. No matter what the topic was of conversation he was being interviewed about, it always came back to, right, the diversity of his company, of his supply chain, of everything around him. So someone like that is really a great example, because everything they do, sometimes what happens is corporations will engage us and they'll say, we want to certify these suppliers. And I say, okay, but just so you know, the biggest hindrance to the success of this program is if these suppliers call any of their contacts internally, and that contact says, don't worry about it, it's not really that important. Okay. Anyone ever says that, you're dead in the water. They're not going to move forward, because it's not in every part of the company. It happens all the time. So I think what happens is, a company like Kaiser, no matter who you call internally, they're like, no, diversity is a huge component, a huge asset to our company, and a huge part of our success. So that has to be the same. The CEO has to demonstrate that it is important to him or her, and all the way down. That means focusing on your purchases as well. So for example, don't say diversity is important to you and then not hire a diverse owned car company that you're going to use all the time you go to the company, right? Because it's not a hard one to find, but demonstrate to your employees that it has to be part of every single decision. So we talk about all the time about how, are you shopping, or are you shopping intentionally? No matter what you do, it has to be personal and business. So I mean, like a trip, we always do like a trip to Target with me and my 5 kids is always entertaining, because they're like, it's like a hunt for women-owned business logo, right? Who can we find in there? Because it's one of the most obvious ones to see, but it's become so ingrained in them that they just assume most of the products in our house are diverse owned. And the same in our company. Every team meeting, we start with, what's your diversity success story for the last week? Like, what did you buy? Who did you support? Was it local, diverse, small, whatever it is? How did you support it? Because it's one of our core values to support diversity. And that's how it has to be in the C-suite all the way down.
No, that's a great point. I just think with the CEO, you really have to embody that thing, right? You have to
Absolutely.
if you really want to have the culture in place, it needs to be. But I'm glad you brought that up. So I just think it's critical, and I can't understand why more companies aren't just jumping on this whole diversity thing. Because to me, if nothing else, it makes your company better, because you're getting ideas and perspectives from different backgrounds and people that know things that you don't, have experiences that you don't.
I'll tell you why they don't do it. I'll tell you why. So, and we're going to go back to my analogy that I gave you about diversity masterminds. I'm just going to switch it a little bit. So the gym, right? Nobody ever signed in for the gym. I'm like, I think I'm going to start going to the gym. That sounds fun. Usually it's because your pants are too tight. Your doctor said your cholesterol is high. Doctor said your blood pressure is too high. Or you're just like, oh, I feel gross. That's when people start going to the gym, right? But the reason but nobody just does it, right? But then give it 2 weeks, give it 3 weeks, give it a month, and you're like, oh, I feel a little better. I have a little more energy. My pants fit better. You go back 2 months later, your cholesterol has dropped 2 points. Okay. Now they're seeing the benefit. But unless someone had said to them, you've got to make some changes, they're not going to do it. Human nature doesn't like to change. And it's not always easy. If you've been working with XYZ company for 10 years and you don't feel like anything's broken, are you going to look for a different supplier? And it's not usually until you get that different supplier that you're like, wow, they were not bringing a lot to the table. We just didn't realize that something wasn't broken. So that's the only reason, sometimes you need the how before the why before the how, but you have to sometimes show people like how to do it, which is why I'm not against goals and quotas or whatever you want to call them, because sometimes it takes people to get that little bit of nudge, right? To see why, and then that's when they're like, wow, that supplier was amazing. I would have never even reached out to them if I wasn't forced to look outside of my little square that I usually keep myself in.
Wow. So it's interesting. Earlier, you said something, I think we were talking about like everything that's happened over the past 18 months, and there's all this attention around diversity, right? So what do you tell that big company, right, that's saying, yeah, we want to do the right thing, right? What do we do? And then what would you tell that small business that says, okay, here's an ideal opportunity for us right now? What would you share with both?
About having a supplier diversity program, about creating one?
Or just how to, what you should do as that large company, right? What are those things that you should do with your program to make sure your program is where it needs to be? And as a small business, how do you capitalize on this opportunity where people are a little more conscious about
what's going on out there? So I think for the big companies, sometimes they'll say to us, well, we don't want to have to just give contracts because they're diverse. I'm like, good, because you shouldn't. Like, you still have to do the best for your company. But I guarantee you, and I guarantee you, as long as you make sure you include one diverse business in every RFP, you will instantaneously grow your program because they will always show up. Like, very rarely do the diverse suppliers not show up, because there's just a sense of responsibility to your customers that you don't get from a larger company, right? Also, think about your footprint, right? When you hire a small woman, diverse-owned company, you are hiring people from that demographic, that community as well, right? Which doesn't always happen, right? So like, I'm constantly hiring people that are of diverse demographics because it's part of our core values, right? So, and they say it's like 70 cents of every dollar when you hire a diverse firm goes back to the community. So that is huge. So you can then do an economic study to show exactly where all those dollars went, how much taxes you added to the economy, how many jobs you created, all these different components are so crucial if you really want to see your imprint. Now, for the small company, it's about, first of all, making sure you can really service these businesses. Do not show up to a party that you are not invited to, okay? If you have no place being at that party, find a different party to go to, okay? It just means, like, if you can't service the Fortune 100 directly, can you service one of their prime suppliers? Because almost all of them have requirements for their prime suppliers. It's one thing, and they can't be like, no, we're not going to do it. Like, if a large corporation is saying you are contractually obligated to spend 32% with any subcontractor that you do for our project, they have to do it. So maybe it's the next level down you need to sell to, right? So find out what's best for you. And that's why, as I said before, Diversity Masterminds was created to help people really get a strategy behind their supplier development, business development.
And talk more about the Diversity Mastermind group. Because, I mean, that sounds like, I'm not aware of another concept similar to that. Talk more about that and how that helps people.
So after facilitating diversity certifications for like 10 years, the thing that I kept hearing was I got nothing out of my certification, right? Or I didn't want to renew it because I didn't really see any benefits from it. And I knew it wasn't true because I'd seen, and I have so many great stories. Like, one of my favorites I'll tell you after, but like, there's people who just don't realize where the business comes from. Okay. So, and I would ask these suppliers, ask these clients, well, did you do this? Did you go here? Did you participate in this? And they'd be like, I could, I should. I didn't even know that was an option for me. So that's when I realized that there was a big gap between what the entrepreneurs knew and what the regions, what the certified bodies and the corporations thought the entrepreneurs knew. So I really started looking out and calling people who were kind of tangentially involved in the business development space around supplier diversity, asking them, do you do this kind of coaching? What does it look like? And I know, as somebody, I have a business, I have 5 kids. Like, I can't always just fly off to do these programs. So I wanted it to be virtual, back before virtual was cool. And I wanted it to, be accessible to everybody, whether they want to sell to the big Fortune 1000 or another small business, another diverse business. And I couldn't find anything. So I was reaching out to people who had other parts of the expertise that I needed. I had like 60% of what I needed, but there was that 40% I just didn't have myself. So I had met Liz years ago through the WeBank network. And I was like, oh, she has even more of the expertise that I even needed. And so we partnered up and we created Diversity Masterminds to really teach people how to leverage the certification. And people tell us, like, we have a great testimonial reel, and they're like, I learned more in the first hour than I have in 3 years of being certified. Over and over again, because it's just information that's not easily accessible to just think you'd figure it out, right? You really have to understand, just like anything else, right? It's a tool. So you have to know how to use the tool.
No, that's great. Now, I'm just a firm believer in the whole concept of the mastermind. So what you're saying doesn't surprise me as far as the value that would come from that. So
right. And we love when the other cohorts, the participants are like, oh, we did that one time with this client. Here's how it really worked for us, right? Because you get the other perspectives. But my funny story about like not knowing where business comes from is, so a few years ago, I was putting together a talk for something. And so I called a client of mine named Troy, and I was like, hey, Troy, I'm putting together a talk and I want to give some success stories. Can you tell me like how well have you done with your certification? And they're veteran certified. He's like, you know what, Heather, we really haven't gotten anything out of it. I was like, what? Come on, Troy, for seriously, what about the company that sent you to us, right? Who we can't say their name, but they're probably in your computer. So like, tell me about like, did you get any more business with them? And he said, well, when we first came to you 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I think we were doing like 250,000 a year with them. And I think last year we billed like 2 point something million. I'm like, okay, Troy, hold on. So I'm not like a math genius, but I'm pretty sure over 2 million is more than 250,000. He was like, yeah, but they didn't give us that business because we're certified. I said, of course not. You are really good at what you do. And when they said to you, we would like you to be certified, you said, okay. What you said to them is, you are an important client to us. You are an important partner to us. You're not just a transaction. You demonstrated to them that you are in it with them. And that's why you keep getting business. He said, oh, he's like, you know what else they did actually? They introduced us to a bunch of their prime suppliers and we were doing business with them too now. I'm like, Troy, come on, man. That's exactly what it does. Like, it's not always linear where the business comes from, right? The reason that the supply diversity development team is telling the other prime suppliers is because he's done a great job. And they also need their prime suppliers to spend money with diverse suppliers. And this is a great one. So use them. So it's not always going to be just like an obvious thing. So when people say to me they got nothing out of it, I'm like, all right, let's back up. Let's talk about some of the business that you may even not even know where it came from.
Wow.
No, that's great. That's great. And then, so in addition to all the other things you're doing, you're on the Business Unusual podcast.
Well, it's more of just like a interview-ish thing. Yeah. So Liz and I have Business Unusual when Business Unusual becomes business as usual. It's on YouTube right now. It's very just kind of, it's not as professional as you guys are doing it. It's really just a conversation with other certified diverse suppliers. Would love to have the two of you on if you want to come. And
absolutely.
And it's just a fun conversation about what they've done during the last, 24 months. And did they have to change it up? What did they do to focus in? Like one of the things that I found a lot of business owners, because a lot of small business owners have virtual teams. It's very hard to make a cohesive feeling when everyone's virtual now, right? How do you really keep that team feeling? And so these are some of the things that we talk about that other entrepreneurs really get. Whereas when you're talking to people who are not entrepreneurs, they're like, what's the big deal? Like, oh my goodness. So, like, I love when my non-entrepreneur friends are like, you're so lucky you don't answer to anybody. I'm like, answer to anybody? Have you met my clients?
Always answering to someone.
I'm always answering to somebody for sure. I know.
Oh man. So what's next on the horizon for you, Heather?
So we're going to continue. I'm really excited for in-person conferences to come back. I feel like I kind of understand how a lot of the introverts felt when they had to go to in-person conferences when they were like, that's how I feel about virtual conferences. I'm like, I can't focus. It's not the same. I need to be in person with people. So I'm looking forward to more getting back in person, getting back on stages with the, educating people on the power of diversity and supplier diversity. I mean, I think there's just so much that's unknown, right? Just think about you two are in the supplier diversity world, and there's still things that you're like, wow, I didn't know that, right? There's just so much about it that's just not well known that people aren't taking advantage of. And so I really want to see, that's why I said, like, I want to make the business world more closely resemble the real world, right? Look at the statistics of who's in business and who's not. Like, the numbers are not right? So we need to get more business owners to understand how they can grow and leverage their business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so now, Heather, this is Ted Fell's favorite part of the show. We call it Around the Horn, where each of us leaves a closing thought that we want people to remember about this episode that can help them to become unstoppable.
Wait. How can I possibly follow the world renowned Heather Cox? This is a setup. Well,
again, anytime it's a Thursday episode, it's going to be.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, you already know. You already know how it's going to be.
Yeah, just have to do your best, man. Just do your best.
I'm going to do my best. Do my best. That's it.
So Heather, what is that closing thought that you have that you want people to remember to help them to be unstoppable?
Don't overlook what is right there. I think that people so often overlook some of the most amazing opportunities because they just think it's not relevant. But it's, so just don't overlook anything. There's so, like, same with conferences. You go to conferences and you're like, oh, that person can't help me. Every single person has something to offer. And I feel the same way about some of these opportunities. People are like, oh, but that doesn't apply to me, right? Like Jackie said, $5 million later sure does apply to her. So don't overlook these opportunities or anybody that you meet.
Don't overlook the opportunities.
Wow.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Ted.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is, in being in business for some time. I don't want to date myself because everybody may not think they may think I'm over 30. So, having a business and getting certified, like we've done it in the past, and there's times I've been that person to say, what am I getting from this, right? But then to know that there's an organization like yours, Heather, where you can have a coach that can tell you how to really leverage it and how important and what just a need that you're servicing, where there's people that, again, it's like you were talking about before about going to the gym, and if you don't know how to use the equipment.
Right.
So, yeah, because I'm thinking right now I need to go recertify, and I'm going to call you. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and recertify. So this is just great information that you shared.
No, that's good stuff, Ted. Good stuff. And so my around the horn, it has to do with how you said that this whole thing started because you were frustrated with the process, right? I was reading something in a book I was reading, and it talked about how, like, frustration can actually be a good thing because it's a step before major learning comes.
Yeah.
I thought that's interesting, and because on the entrepreneurial path, there's a lot of frustration.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So I must be about to learn a whole lot. But
Thanks.
But no, I think the takeaway is I think you have to pay attention to those frustrations, because you could be on to a business idea, because if it frustrates you, that means it may frustrate somebody else, right? Absolutely. And you could put the fix in place to solve that frustration and take things to a whole other level.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This has been an awesome episode. We've just got a lot of good takeaways from Heather, and everybody's going to go out and make sure they get their diversity certifications, and they're not going to be overlooking the things that are right, the opportunities that are right in front of them. So Heather, go ahead.
But for some reason, like, I want to see you juggle or something.
Well, the office I'm sitting in is like all of 4 feet, so it's hard to juggle in here. But next time. We'll get there.
Yeah, we're gonna need you to juggle. We're gonna do. You gotta do something next time.
Let's see you walk the tightrope. I like to see that too. That'd be.
I was actually looking for a used tightrope to put in my backyard, and you would think of all places, Vegas, there'd be people selling them. But I cannot find one. So if anybody out there knows where I can find a used tightrope to install in my backyard, let me know.
There you go.
Absolutely. So Heather, how can people get a hold of you?
So you can always go to social media. We're at Certify My Co. is my social media handle across the board. And then you go to certifymycompany.com, all spelled out, is a great way to reach us. And you can do info at certifymycompany.com. We'll send an email over to us. But yeah, definitely get certified. That is my number. As I said, less than 1% is out there. So, and there's a lot of pie to be had. So get certified, figure out how to use it. It is amazing.
And you said, again, that's an amazing stat. Say that again. So you said 1%.
Less than 1% of the diverse businesses in the U.S. are certified. If you look at how many are in the country versus how many are certified, numbers are skewed.
Wow. Tons of opportunity. So once again, we'd like to thank Heather Cox for all the information that she shared and all the nuggets.
Amazing.
Dropped. This has been a phenomenal episode. We told you this is not your everyday podcast. Don't forget to share the show.
Share the show.
Share the show.
I like that. Do that one more time, Heather.
Share the show.
That was good.
That flow right in. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And don't forget to share the show. Hopefully, we helped you to laugh, to learn, and to ultimately level up. And you can watch us on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, but you can also go back and listen to the recording on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, any of those other places that you like to get your podcasts. So again, Not Your Everyday Podcast. We thank you for joining us on this Thursday episode of the 30 Minute Hour Podcast. Until next time, have a great one.